this bright, sunny Saturday morning. My name is Pat Phillips, and I am the Associate Director at NJCTS. So glad you could join us for this discussion on advocacy, Advocate Now. This session is part of our new Empowerment Advocacy series to give families the knowledge and skills that can help them be their best own advocates. A few notes before we get started. Everyone is muted at this time, and so that we ask that when the question and answer period begins, that you unmute yourself to ask a question or type your question in the chat box, or simply use the raise your hand feature. We have today with us, I'd like to introduce our speakers today for you. We have with us today Charlotte Regen and Sam Regen. Charlotte is an educator and mother of 2 children, Sam with us here today, and Charlotte's professional degree is in special education, and she works in middle school special education. She and her husband became involved with NJCTS when Sam was diagnosed about 8 years ago, and they have participated in many events here with us at NJCTS, the Family Retreat Weekend, NJ Walks for TS, and the Youth Advocate Program, as well as the Tim Howard Leadership Academy. And Sam, hey Sam, so glad you're here with us, with your mom. Sam is 17 years old. He's at Robbinsville High School. At school, he is the president of Play Unified. He's a member of the National Honor Society, the Thespian Honor Society, and the Music Honor Society, and deeply involved with the musical cast, chamber choir, and jazz band. Wow, Sam, a lot going on. And outside of school, he is also a youth advocate, as I said before, with NJCTS, and a volunteer of Ability Tree, and a member of the Youth Advisory Committee of the New Jersey chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. So we are so really delighted that they are here with us this morning to share with us their journey on advocacy and their personal journey with Tourette syndrome. Thank you both for being here. I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you so much. So good morning, everyone. It's so nice to be here on this very splendid fall morning. And I just want to say what an honor it was for me. I haven't done a presentation in so long, and it's such an honor to be on all of your computer screens this morning. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Sam. I see some familiar faces, and some of you are kind of my advocate heroes. So I'm glad I have heroes and then people we can share our story with. And yes, thank you for joining us when it's so gorgeous outside. As soon as we finish, we can all get outside. So Sam and I spent a lot of time discussing what this presentation would include, and it was a learning journey for me because there were some questions I had never thought to ask Sam. So we're going to kind of call this our inadvertent journey to advocacy, because we didn't really know what we were doing for a long time. And hopefully, if some of you are just starting out on your journey, we can make that trip a little more intentional. So throwing back to the beginning of our journey, Sam was born, as far as we knew, typical infant. Started showing some bonus features right from the beginning. Sam was incredibly intelligent, but was nonverbal, and had some sensory issues and social anxiety issues. But we live in a fantastic town, and they offered him services very early. Sam was in therapy from, I think, the age of 2 until he began our preschool program at the age of 3. So he has now been in our school district from 3 to 17. So they're like, move on, you're done. So around the age of 4, Sam started doing some really interesting things with his eyes. I am sure a lot of you are going to identify with pieces of this story. Sam came home from soccer practice one day and was blinking in a unique way. So of course, like any young mother, I took him to the doctor. The neurologist said, I think your son has transient tics. The eye doctor said, your son has really bad eye allergies. I went with the eye allergies. I liked that a lot better. Nothing really progressed from the ages of 4 until about 8. Around 8, he got a rash on his face that just wouldn't go away. And Sam started kind of stretching his lips so he wouldn't scratch his face. And one day he went into school still having this rash, and he walked out of school having what looked like a full-blown seizure. And just kept walking out of school as his arms are going and his neck is going, and he's not saying anything unusual. He's like, hi, Mom. Sam, what are you doing? I don't know. I've been doing this all day. Huh? Threw him in the minivan, called my husband, said, get in contact with the school. I'm heading for the pediatrician. Made it to the pediatrician, and I still get a little choked up. Most frightening moment of my life. They said, something is really wrong. You need an emergency neurology appointment. There are no emergency neurology appointments. They are 3 months down the road. We ended up that night in the ER, in the middle of a freezing cold January night, where they told me my son either probably had a drug overdose or a brain tumor. And neither of them are really great options to hear as a young mom. Sam, how did it feel as a kid hearing these things?
I promise you to everyone, the story does end on a positive note. It does get better. No, to be honest, one of the strangest feelings, fish, that I've had with my TS is a lot of my tics I don't notice. And I know in my household, I don't mean if I under the bus, but one of my worst tics is I twirl my hair. I twirl my hair all day, every day. If my hands are free, it's twirling my hair. I'm trying to not do it right now. And mom always tells me, Sam, stop twirling your hair. But I don't know when I'm doing it. And in the beginning, it actually took a lot of work to be able to realize when I was ticking. So I came out of school flailing my arms. I didn't start any of the echolalia or phrases yet, but I was just ticking. Mom comes out, Sam, what's wrong with you? I'm like, something's wrong with me? Like, what? I just didn't notice because nobody said anything. And the only memory, because I was in 3rd grade then, so I don't even remember a lot of the day. Fish. But it was during picture day. So it's kind of like, here's your last easy picture before you start ticking. Flash went, ticks. That's literally all I remember. And I didn't even realize till I was ticking until mom said it. And I remember going to the doctor that night. It was like 8 something at night. I was exhausted because I've never experienced tics before. And for those of you who have ever asked your kids what it's like having TS, it's exhausting. Ticking all day, it's a lot of physical movement. The amount of calories I burn in a day, it's great. But I wasn't used to it in the beginning. And so I was exhausted, and going to the doctor, I was just nervous. I had no clue what it was going to be like because I didn't even really know something was wrong with me, to be honest, until mom said it. And then I realized, why is my body moving and I can't control it? Because the feeling of having, like, I'm used to it by now, but the feeling of not having control of like my neck right now, in the beginning, it's a strange feeling. It kind of feels like one of those dolls with the little strings. Like, why is somebody moving me and I can't control it? So getting used to that feeling took a long time, and I was just nervous going to the doctor. And the original doctor didn't have much of an explanation other than drug overdose or brain tumor, neither of which were a good answer. So then, Mom, I know you remember when we went to more doctors after the original night.
Yeah, our journey was really chaotic in the beginning. We did finally get an emergency neuro appointment, and they told me that our son probably had a degenerative muscle disorder. And I researched it, read up on it, and it looked like Sam would probably end up in a wheelchair, unable to breathe. It was terrifying, and it didn't sit quite right because the things I was looking at online as I was researching, it didn't really match Sam. And even though my background is in special ed, I had never seen anything like this. I hadn't really dealt with movement disorders at all. This is such a, kind of a niche field that you really have to have seen it before to recognize it. So like any good parent, I'm like, let's go to the top. Where does Michael J. Fox go? So we went where he went. We figured that'd be a good solid diagnosis. So the doctor took out her pen and paper, observed Sam, videoed Sam, took a whole lot of notes, and looks at me and says, it's TS, absolutely sure. What? Huh? Ah, okay. Yeah, no, I see that. It's not a brain tumor. We were thrilled. Best diagnosis ever. We thought this is fantastic. And then we came home and we had to live with TS. And that was not so fantastic. I really had wished the doctor had said, here's your handbook. Here's what you can do. It was great. It was a solid diagnosis. We had no doubts, but it was in New York, so they weren't quite as familiar with some of the research sources available in New Jersey. And they really didn't have a lot to give us other than medication scripts. And we wanted more than that. We really, you know, that feeling in the beginning where you just like, you crave knowledge about what's going on with your child, and you stay up those late nights researching and reading and wanting to see other kids that have this. And luckily, within weeks of Sam's diagnosis, during a late night internet search, we found the Rutgers Tick Clinic, which obviously led us right to NJCTS. And that was kind of the changing point, not only in our TS journey, but kind of the focus of our entire life. That really changed how we looked at our child rearing and our family communication and how we represented each other and spoke up for each other. Sam, do you want to introduce the poll to start our presentation?
Yeah, so this is kind of the turning point in our story where we go into the advocacy. So I know, Pat, you said you have a poll that we can put up.
Yes. Brianna, we'll share that poll right now, Brianna.
Yeah, so it's just, have you done any advocacy work, whether it be with TS or another area?
Will we get those answers right away, Pat, or at the end?
It's going to take a few seconds, so you can kind of talk through, and Brianna will put it up. It'll come up soon.
We'll just jump right in. You guys holler when you have those results. So Sam and I were talking this morning, and I said, so Sam, when I gave birth to you, didn't I just automatically become your advocate? He thought about it for a minute, and he said, no. Oh, there we go.
There's the poll. So it looks like it's somewhat split down the middle, a little more yes and a little less no, but that's good. We're all here for a good purpose.
Fantastic. We are off to a good start. So Sam looked at me and said, you know, Mom, no, when I was born, you became my protector. And he said, it's kind of like football. I have to look at my notes because I'm not a football person. Wait a minute. He said, as my protector, you played defense. And it's more of in the moment, making sure I'm safe, making sure I'm protected. And it's a little static. You kind of just stay in that role for life. He said, advocacy is the offense. And that's taking us from where we are to where we need to be. And it's much more mindful, and it's a skill. It's something you develop. You kind of identify a problem and you develop the skills to advocate either for your child or having your child advocate for themselves. And I really like that because it made advocacy seem like it's something attainable and something that, while I wasn't naturally good at it in the beginning, I could get better at it. I like to see advocacy more as a vision for the future. And everybody likes to have a vision because it gives you something to work for. And any disability or disorder can be daunting because you kind of get stuck in it at times and forget where you could be. So like any learning any new diagnosis, it begins with a lot of research, finding out what does this entail. We would go on the internet and watch endless YouTube videos and just say, what does TS look like? What's the worst of it? What's kind of the typical? So I don't even think we realized we were starting our journey at that point. But really we had, because we were gathering in all the information of our basis of what his diagnosis could include. There's a learning curve. Be gentle with yourself. I was the world's worst non-advocate in the beginning. This was day one of my pre-advocacy journey. Sam began vocal ticking every minute of every single day, all day, loudly. And I got up that morning and thought, oh my goodness, and it's time for school. And somebody had said to us, keep your child in school. This is what your child needs. So I'm a rule follower. So I took him to school. And I walked into the main office. I had no idea who my contact person was. I had no idea who I should be talking to. So I walked him down to his classroom, greeted his teacher, and I said, here he is. And she said, great. and I went home and cried my eyes out. So that was my non-advocacy journey. I didn't know what Sam needed. Sam and I hadn't discussed what he needed, and I didn't know how to get it. And thank goodness the school kind of took over at that point because they knew what to do. They very shortly after that offered us a 504, and that began our journey of realizing you can ask for things, you can modify things. As we learned to identify Sam's needs, we became less reactive. In the beginning, you just want to protect your child. How do I send my child like this into the building and just hope they're not going to be bullied or misunderstood or miss out on their educational experience. We went from being reactive to, through the guidance of NJCTS, is becoming familiar with the IEP process and the 504 process, and realizing we could get really creative in knowing what we could ask for. And in the beginning, I just researched other 504s or IEPs and copied whatever they said. Obviously, the school district had lots of suggestions. I don't even think we asked Sam too much in the beginning. Did we, Sam? Did we ask you too much in the very beginning?
I don't believe so, because I didn't really know any of the answers.
Yeah, I guess looking back, if I could have identified some areas of improvement in my inadvertent advocacy journey, I wish I had realized it's okay in the beginning. Just learn what this means for your child. Take some time to tread water, ask the school kind of what they can do to get you by as you develop, those advocacy skills in yourself or in your child. In the beginning, we were treading water. But after a while, we realized you could get creative in what you request in the classroom. Like we said, advocacy is a vision. It's taking what's happening now, identifying where ideally your child would like to be, and how can you get to that point. Sam laughs, but a tray of cookies at an IEP meeting will carry you very far. Sam's IEP meetings are almost always at Valentine's Day. So a big tray of, red and pink and white sprinkle M&M cookies makes you kind of a likable parent. Try to be likable. There will be two sides to your journey. Like we said, kind of the defensive player where you will protect your child at all costs. And I see some superheroes in here that I have seen defend their child at all costs. Do that because that's your job. That was what you were given as their birthright. And then there's the other side where realize that advocating is a journey for all of you. And sometimes the school district just might not see things that you see. When we started off, before Sam had a 504, straight A student, model student, well-liked by his teachers, and presented well. He tests really well. He's really friendly. At home, he would stay up every night till, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, doing work to perfection. Teachers never would have seen that. They would never know that he had to rewrite every word till it felt right. Or he went through throwing a pen tick. That's so much fun. You write a word, throw your pen, write a word, throw your pen. Nobody could imagine that was happening. Because of course it didn't happen in the classroom, it could only happen at home. Share with your school team or your professional team what's going on at home outside of the classroom. Let them see what you see. That's part of the advocating journey, is being able to share your vision of your child. Because sometimes the school just doesn't see the full picture. A lot of times kids don't like to share the full picture of themselves at school. I'm sure some of you can identify your child gets off the bus and becomes a completely different person. You get that note from school, oh, so-and-so is a doll at school. What a wonderful kid. And you're like, wrong kid. No, mine. You know my kid? That's somebody different. Kids will almost always feel they can be their true self at home. And I remember I used to feel so gypped in the beginning, I really needed to know what Sam's tics looked like all day. So I'd email the teacher, you know, what's his tic level today? She's like, yeah, he's fine. Nothing big, kind of mild today. And then he'd come home and he could barely walk. And I thought, really? I get everything else at the end of the day. Let the staff know that what they see isn't always what's happening in your child's mind and body once they get home. So we said it's a journey. Know who your contact people are. Go on this journey together. Find backup. Again, I see some of you that I know bring backup to IEP meetings. Doesn't have to be contentious. It's just a lot to advocate for your child alone. And in the beginning, sometimes it is just you advocating. And some of you, that will be a lifelong journey. Others of you, your child will take off over the advocating. I laugh now because at IEP meetings, sweat free for me now. I go in, I sit down, Sam tells them what he needs. They're like, yep, that's what we see. Here's what you got. IEP meetings are, I'm really, really blessed right now. It's easy. Bring backup, that's fine. Even just someone else to listen for you. It'll help you be a better advocate for your child. There are things you just might have missed or not have heard. Sorry, I am using notes today because there's so much good stuff. I don't want to miss out on anything. There will always be challenges. You will have maybe a teacher that just doesn't fully get your child's disability. Coming from TS at times seems very intentional. Sam likes to stick out, not likes. One of Sam's tics is sticking out his tongue. If you tell Sam to be quiet, that is when he will tick. At times in elementary school, that looked like intentional disobedience. There is the urge to become the protective parent and to react, to completely just be reactive and get angry. What is your goal? Is your goal to show your anger, or is your goal to have your child experience something different? I had to learn the hard way that my goal should be to help create the world that my son would thrive in. And that meant making sure every sub understood what TS was. Having, in the beginning, friends spoke up for Sam. If a sub said to Sam, I said be quiet, they would say, Sam doesn't be quiet. And now Sam can say it for himself, which is a great part of your journey. If any of you are able to get to that part of your journey, it's kind of a weight is lifted off your shoulders when your child can speak for himself. Because the goal of advocacy, I think, is always let your child speak as much as they can. You're not there to take over their voice, you're there to amplify their voice. Just make it a little louder until they can be heard themselves. The most ideal situation will be something like Sam had in 5th grade, maybe 4th grade. I always go to, in the beginning, I would always go with Sam to meet his teachers the week before classes start and just kind of give them a heads up. This is what's coming your way. We went into this young teacher's classroom and I said, hi, this is who we are. This is what he does. It's going to be a long year. And she goes, okay. I don't think you really got it. Like, he's going to make noise. He's going to move. He's going to need extra assistance. And she said, okay. And that's truly one of the best years of Sam's elementary experience. She didn't mean, okay, I don't hear you. She meant, okay, I hear you and we will make this work at all costs. You have to be careful with teachers like that. You start thinking you don't need an IEP anymore because they make it so easy. They are individualizing the education program for every child in that room, which blows my mind because I work with a very small class and that seems overwhelming. I don't know how they have, 25 kids and they individualize education so well. She made it where I didn't even have to glance at the IEP that year. She gave Sam everything he needed in every moment, and he thrived in that room. That's in the classroom. We've kind of really focused in the classroom. Advocacy is for all areas of your life, whether it's your church or synagogue, sports teams, going out in public. In the beginning, Sam didn't really leave the house. We've kind of glossed over. Sam and I have a tendency to jump over the really challenging part of his life. After Sam was diagnosed, he chose to remain in the house, did not want anyone to hear him ticking, didn't want to see people staring at him in public. And it was a very slow journey. I wish I could remember the point where it switched and Sam became an advocate, not hiding because of his disability. It was a slow journey. It's kind of when you turn around, you look at your kid and say, when did you get that big? It's kind of like that now. I look at Sam and I'm like, why are you so advocating? You just really know what you have going on here. It's a slow journey. It will happen. I think probably the best perspective is to hear from Sam how it happened. He can give us a better idea. I was just the observer half the time.
No, you were part of it too. Thank you so much. So it's funny listening to this story. You were telling me when I was staying home. It kind of sounds like prep for the pandemic, but whole nother story. So in the beginning, right now, I love doing presentations. I remember I told Pat a while ago, please get me a presentation. I feel deprived of presentations. It was not always that way. I remember in the beginning, I got diagnosed in 3rd grade. So in 3rd and 4th grade, when I had to tell my class, I wanted no part of it. So for some disabilities and by the ADA, you don't have to disclose anything. You can go about your life. You don't have to. At least in my case for Tourette, it's a lot better having a reason behind it, because if I stick my tongue out with no explanation, you might take offense to it. So I chose the route of always disclosing. But in the beginning, I wanted no part of it. My guidance counselor would go in for me. I would leave the room, being a little anxious ball in the corner, knowing my class is talking about me. The counselor would come out, I would go back in, and I would just try to pretend nothing happened. Because that was all I wanted to do. Because at the time, Tourette was something wrong. Tourette was something that was not normal. Fish. Goodbye, idiot. Just take me. Fish. Those are some of my long ones. In the beginning, Tourette was something wrong. Tourette was something that wasn't normal, and I'm not supposed to have. So I just didn't want a part of it. Because I've always tried to be a positive kid. But at the time, that was just don't face it. So I had the counselor go in for me. And then around 5th grade, my counselor loved her to death. But at the time, she told me, Sam, you're going to come in and do this with me. And I was like, really? Like, I don't think that's necessary. She's like, no, it is. So I went in, and I just watched the whole time. Didn't like any of it. And then she asked me, all right, Sam, you want to come up for a Q&A? And I was like, why are you bringing me up here? This wasn't part of the deal. Greatest decision of my life, I'm telling you. The counselor brought me up, and it was 5th grade, so the questions were not that complex. But on the other hand, they're 5th graders, so the questions were complex. Just the answers were not that complex, as I didn't even have a great understanding of it yet. So I answered questions. Lo and behold, that was in September. October, I was in a youth advocate training, because I loved it. Because it made me realize, I'm not telling you, I have TS, this is what's wrong with me. We'll see what we can do. See you in June. Like, it was better than that, because I realized this is just who I am. This is not something that's wrong with me. Even though if you look in medical records, it's listed under disabilities. It's not a disability. It's an extra ability. It's some extra credit, some extra pizzazz, in my opinion. That's what I take it as. So in 6th grade, I told my counselor willingly, I said, I'll come up with you and I'll talk a little bit about it. The deal was we'll do like half and half. It ended up her being, hi, this is Sam. He's now going to tell you about his life. And I did. She threw me under the bus again. But once again, I stood corrected and I loved it. I enjoyed every minute of it. And later this was in 6th grade. By the end of the year, I was asked to be in a documentary that aired on Fox News with Tim Howard. The progression period, I'm telling you, once I started, I literally could not stop. And I see Pat smiling because I know she remembers how this was. Once I started, I went to the youth advocate training, and the questions of everyone was pretty much, where do I start? Fish, what, like some of the basic questions, and me was, are you busy next week? Like, are there any presentations available next week? I'm also free the week after. Like, I just wanted to present. And then came 7th grade. After I did the documentary with Tim Howard, Mom was like, dude, you don't need a counselor anymore. You can just tell them. And I was like, okay, here we go. And I started actually advocating for myself in 7th grade. So for me, it took from 3rd grade, so 4 to 5 years, just to be able to advocate for myself. It was not always as, quote, easy as you're seeing it right now. And for some people, it takes more time. Some people, it takes less time. Some people, I was amazed at the training I went to pre-pandemic. There was somebody there, I think he was 9. He was young. Like, there are some people who are just ready at like 10 or 11 years old to just start advocating. That wasn't me, and that's okay. Some people, it takes a while. Some people, it takes a lot less time. But it's never too old or too young fish to advocate for yourself. And for me, it took a little push. I wanted to do it, but I just couldn't get the motivation to embrace, this is who I am. This is an okay thing. It's not something that's wrong with me. So I was pushed by the counselor, but the reward of the feeling afterwards, I can't even tell you. Comfortable and proud. 2 best words I can describe it. I was comfortable with myself, comfortable in the scenario that I was, and proud of it. That was one of the first times since I was diagnosed over those 4 or 5 years of being proud of who I was, because I embraced it. And that's really the key. In order to have other people to accept you, you have to accept yourself. If I didn't accept it, honestly, and I don't like saying this, but it wasn't until like 6th or 7th grade when I accepted who I was. I looked at myself as a kid who has some stuff wrong with him. And that was me. I didn't realize, no. Well, I take that back. I looked at myself as, I have stuff wrong with me and I'm a kid. Step 1 is flipping that. I'm a kid first. Everyone, if you ever see another presentation that I do, I never refer to anyone as the Tourette kid or the disabled kid or the autistic kid or something like that. It's always kid with TS, kid with autism, because I accepted in myself that I'm a kid first. I realized that I'm a kid with TS, and I accepted that I'm human. Everyone has challenges, but I realized it's not actually a challenge because I could use it to embrace who I was and make so many people smile and accept who I was. And this isn't the golden story, especially starting with possible brain tumor and all this. But to get where I was, it was truly the support around me. I can only do so much myself. If I could have started advocating in the beginning of 4th grade, trust me, I would have. But I wasn't there yet. But to get those first pushes, it was truly the staff in my school community and my family and friends, everyone that just kind of pushed me through. And I remember when I first actually talked about it in 6th grade, there was somebody in my science class who came up to me afterwards and he told me, that's cool. Like, hi, I'm not going to say their name now. Lo and behold, they're my best friend to this day. And if I didn't talk to my science class on that day, I don't know if we would have been friends. I didn't know the kid. And now, before the pandemic, we'd be going out every Friday. We'd be hanging out in class all the time. And it's truly the supportive staff community, or the staff and school community, my friends and my family, who got me to where I was. They gave me the support, and what I needed to do was accept myself. Fish, get away. 6 feet, idiot, just like me. Fish. Yes, you just heard 6 feet. That's a quarantine tick I picked up. It's such a joy having echolalia. Anyway, but the support had to come towards me, and I had to accept myself. Because that's the key. You have to accept yourself for other people to accept you. It would not go well if I told everyone, hi, I have TS, and I don't accept it. I wish I didn't have this, and it's a horrible thing. But I don't want you to think that. I want you to look at it as a great thing. That's hard. Because they look at you as a model. So if I didn't accept myself, they truly wouldn't have accepted me. Now, once I was able to accept myself and get other people to accept me, the greatest step is when you go from being an advocate or a speaker for yourself and an advocate for others is when you can accept yourself so much that other people will then accept themselves by your model, and you can get other people to accept them. One of the greatest presentations I've done to this day was, I believe it was September or October of this past school year, right before the pandemic. And I'm happy I ended on a good note before quarantine and all that happened. But it was a presentation I did in Manalapan. And I went in, I actually met this family at a retreat weekend, NJCTS did. Fish. I knew the family. They asked me to come speak at their school. Great. Went in. It was during, I think, like their phys ed class or something. I saw the kid. I was like, we got this. He was like, I don't think so. And he was horrified. He was so anxious. And it made me realize I was in that same spot. The counselor pushed me. I didn't know his counselor. So I was going to be his counselor. And that was really how it was. I told him, I was like, listen, I'm going to talk about you. And it's going to go great. And he was just kind of like, can I sit in the back of the room and don't mention me till the end? And I was like, that's fine. I'm going to say it because you're going to feel so much better afterwards. He was squirming so much the whole presentation. I said his name, and I don't know if you've seen the emoji with like the bug eyes. That was what he looked at. He was like, that's me. And everyone looked at him. He looked so uncomfortable. And then everyone looked away back at the presentation. And in my eyes, when I was his grade, and when the counselor said my name for the first time, when I was in the room, I was like, that's me. Something's wrong. What happened? Because I thought everyone was then going to look at me differently. Did they look at him differently? No. They truly understood him more. And afterwards, he still said hi to his friends. He still had a great lunch. And I came over and I was like, how was it? The smile on this kid's face. Gave him the biggest hug, which my favorite, hugs are the way to go. The smile on this kid's face, I can't even describe it. And it made me realize in that moment, I taught the kids to accept me. I taught the kids to accept him. And the kids were only able to accept him because he accepted himself. And he even left. I was like, how was it? He was like, good, but I gotta go lunch now. I'm like, well, guess my job is done here. But he was then able to completely go and accept himself. And that's one of the greatest gifts of advocacy. It feels good advocating for yourself. And if you're a parent, it feels good advocating for your kid. Being able to advocate for someone else is, I'm telling you, I love school. I want to get good grades. I've missed calc quizzes for this. I'm willing to drop it for advocacy. And all of my advocacy journey would not have been possible without everything from NJCTS. You need to find a home base, which for me was always NJCTS. In the beginning, when I wanted to go fish, I really wanted to go to my first youth advocate workshop. I went, I was so excited. I got there and I was like, oh, this is real now. And it was horrifying. I was so nervous and I was kind of unsure about it because I remember my first retreat weekend that I went to. I met so many other people with TS. I was horrified because I've never met anyone with TS. Saw them and they were like, we have the same thing. And I was like, that's possible? Because it's so different in every person. Going to this workshop was a whole nother experience because it was not only people with TS, it was people that accepted themselves. And by the end, I felt so empowered. I went back, told my 6th grade class for the first time, and then we just kept going. And every time I did a presentation, I was having breakfast right before my sister. She told me, you don't get nervous anymore. I was like, a little bit. I don't want to show it, but I get a little bit nervous. But every time I did it, not only did it get easier, but it got more rewarding because I was, by the spot I am now, I'm not only advocating for myself, I'm advocating for other kids, teens, young adults, and just spreading the message because the reward after for me has always been seeing the person that I'm there for, the smile on people's faces, because sometimes it's hard for people to take that first step. But once that first step is taken, trains left the station. Like there's no turning back. Not because you can't turn back, because once you can truly accept yourself, you're accepted. Done. Now you just have to keep going and advocating. And I know I'm telling you all of the good things right now. advocacy is not always going to go the way you want it to. Sometimes the traditional format of what I'm doing right now, telling you about my story, telling you how I did it, and moving on, I hope it works. I mean, I guess I'll find out in 15 minutes, but it works. It's not always going to be perfect. And I see some people from school here that have never heard this story, but one of my, I wouldn't say favorite, but most interesting advocacy experiences was a teacher I had a few years ago. From the beginning, thought they were great, couldn't accept my TS at all. They were just like, okay, it was kind of like what mom said for fourth grade. Told them what I had, they said okay, and instead of accepting it, it was kind of, we're just going to look past it. Now, I don't want you to look at me and go, hey, that's the TS kid. I want you to look at me and go, that's the kid with TS. What this teacher did was, that's the kid. Just completely look past the TS, which is good if that's an accepting rate, but this teacher just couldn't accept that I had TS. I had extra time on my IEP, so this teacher would make sure to remind me every few minutes how much time I had left. I needed to take breaks. This teacher would remind me, okay, but make sure you realize you're going to be missing stuff while you're gone. If you've noticed, I'm a little sarcastic. So for this teacher's gift at the end of the year, I wrote them a very nice letter because I was truly thankful for what they've taught me. I include a little gift card in it. I know mom's cringing as I tell this. And then I also left in my IEP, highlighted everything this teacher did not abide by. Everything. Which was a large portion of the IEP. I'm sorry, Mom. Don't get me wrong, this isn't how I wanted to do it. But I wanted this teacher to understand. I don't like leaving a list of things you did wrong. But I did, because I was younger, so I didn't know better. I did it. I'm a senior now, dead serious. This teacher was actually asking me to to be a teacher's assistant for this year. It wasn't the greatest way of advocating, but it got the point across. So sometimes taking that extra step, it's not the ideal situation, and advocating is not always going to be unicorns and rainbows with a little teal bow over it. However, just knowing yourself and knowing what you need to do to get from point A to point B, once you accept yourself, everyone can accept you. If they didn't accept me then, they can't accept me. But I truly showed them I'm proud of this IEP. This IEP is things that help me because I can be just as good as every other kid. With that IEP, last year, got principal's honor roll. At A's for every single class. And I'm so proud of that. Couldn't have done that without the IEP. But that IEP was what allowed me to it wasn't showing me I'm held back, so this is what I need to do to get forward. It was simply, this is what I need to make me who I need to be and who I want to be at school.
Sam, that's amazing, your story. I just wanted to just not really cut you off, but see if anyone had any questions at this point, because and Charlotte have shared some amazing information. Anybody have any questions you want to throw out? Okay, let Sam continue the extra pizzazz and extra ability. And I think of you as a young man, not even as a kid, a mature young man. You know, the insight that you have into your journey is just amazing and just so inspiring. So I'll let you continue. If anyone has any questions, I want to get your questions answered too.
Yeah,
You can
anyone
either
can also write
unmute
it in the
yourself
chat.
or you can type it in the chat room. If not, I'm going to have Sam, finish up, okay? But just jump in if you have questions, anyone.
Yeah, I'm actually going to turn it over to Mom to give a few comments.
Yeah, the bonus features is not something I created on my own. It's an author that I adore. And she has, I think, like 10 adopted children, and they all have bonus features. And I think it's a great positive way to look at, behaviors that can sometimes be challenging. It puts a positive touch on it. There was so much here, and it's funny because Sam and I prepared so long for this, and then I thought it was like 10 things we never said. The advocacy journey is not simple. It's not short, as you can tell. It's not always easy. But Sam and I were saying, like, if we were new to the diagnosis and we were doing it over again, what would we want? And I think we would want like 5 easy steps. And I think you all just passed Advocacy 101 because you found this and you came here. So yay, first semester done. You are well on your journey. Sam was talking about accepting your diagnosis or your disorder, or your disability, your challenge, your bonus feature, whatever it is. Those of you that I know, you are top notch at this anyway. You go to the walks, you go to the support groups, you fill your home with symbols that you take pride in the challenge that your child has. Fill your school libraries with books that describe children in different ways. I found a fantastic one. It's called Tully and Me. I think it's pretty recent. Without using the word autism or Asperger's, it creates this gorgeous story of acceptance and friendship and differences. Fill your school libraries with those things. Wear your shirts of, whatever. I think this month, I think is Hearing Loss Awareness Month or something like that. Wear your t-shirts representing each of those. Give your child a sense, your child, your class, somebody else's child, give them a sense that it's recognized, it's okay. We say those words. Somebody said to me last week, is it okay if I say the word Tourette? Yes, we say those words a lot. And like Sam said in the beginning, it was like, oh, Sam has TS. And now we're like, Sam has TS, and it's cool and it's okay. We were incredibly blessed right from the beginning to be given opportunities for Sam to have superheroes. I did not choose it. I did not provide it. I wish I had known to do so. Sam met Tim Howard multiple times at a very young age, but also every time we went to an NJCTS event, they included a mentor panel of these incredibly cool, accomplished, funny, phenomenal young people. Always my favorite part of any event. And now Sam's one of those kids that sits on those panels. But it gave me a goal. When Sam was diagnosed, at that point, he wasn't leaving the house. I needed to know he was going to accomplish things. I needed to know there were kids that had TS, that went to college, that drove cars, that played soccer on a competitive level. I had no idea those things were possible. We talk about advocacy as a visionary journey. I didn't have a vision because I didn't have role models yet. Those mentor panels gave me a goal and an ideal.
I have someone raise their hand to ask a question. I think Ms. Perez would like to ask a question. Sorry to cut you off, Charlotte.
Hi, yes, and hi, Charlotte. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Carrie.
Hi. So this question is actually for Sam, since he's younger. No offense, Charlotte, but we're the moms. And Sam, where you are right now, looking back, and if there's a younger child, right? Because a lot of your advocacies seem to start around the six-ish grade timeline. If you were a kindergartner or a first grader or a second grader that just learned about the diagnosis, how would you help the younger child come to terms with Tourette syndrome, especially since that at that age, everything's giggles and funny and all that? What would you tell somebody younger like that?
That is a great question. I to be honest, I actually think you kind of answered the question yourself a little bit. You said everything at that age, it's kind of giggles and funny. I always make jokes about my TS. All my friends know I'm constantly joking about my TS, and I always show that there's a big difference between laughing with me and laughing at me. In the kindergarten, first and maybe second grade, a lot of class and friendships, just giggling, laughing, having fun. If you can instill in the kids at an early age, this is still something to laugh at. You can laugh at it if the kid's laughing at it. You really need to instill, this is something fine. This is something everyone has. And I know one of the funniest moments ever was during a lockdown at my school. It was actually I believe it was in my junior year. We had a lockdown, and this was right after I really started my echolalia, the saying words and phrases. We went in the corner, lights are down, we're all silent, and then I just went on a rant about fish. It was all a talk. Fish, there's one of them. It was all a tick. But I just said like a phrase about fish, and we all just started laughing. Because I was laughing too. But because it's moments like that where we realize it's okay to laugh at it. And in the earlier grades, if you can instill the laughing of acceptance, and you're laughing because you accepted the kid or the friend or whoever it was, I think that's really the key of how to advocate for these kids.
I think as an old person opinion, Sam and I have kind of forgotten, right after he was diagnosed, our school district provided a mentor within the school community. I think, Sam, was he a senior?
Yeah.
Okay, so he was a senior. We actually have never met the young man, but he communicated frequently with Sam by text and email. And this kid was, I'm sure he's doing something amazing right now. He was a really competitive ice hockey player, straight A student, really prominent in his school community. And Sam would just reach out to him on a hard day and say, dude, I'm in a bad place. Like, what do you have to say? And the young man was incredibly responsive and encouraging. So I really can't say enough about peer mentors and having someone to help guide your child. It makes it way less intimidating.
Okay, great. I think Ms. Perez has another question. Go right ahead.
Yeah, actually, this is from my other half. So the Mr. Perez, but I'm going to be the voice for him if that's okay. So my husband is curious about where your husband was in this, Charlotte, and he's curious from both your perspective as well as from Sam's perspective. Did Sam feel that your father understood you? And Charlotte, did you feel like your husband was right there? Were you more of the lead, and were there any challenges around that?
Definitely looking back to those early days researching, he kind of took the lead. I'm more the, Sam and I are very connected because we're very similar. So I was kind of like, I'll hold you as you tick. And Adam would be on the computer typing up like, what do we do? Where do we go? He thankfully would drive us to every Rutgers tick therapy appointment, not a road. I like driving up there. So he would leave work. His work knew this was what was going on. Advocacy, I think most effectively becomes a family experience. He was great with sharing with family members. Charlotte's not being a protective, overprotective parent. This is what our family life looks like. Sam and I did develop some unhealthy codependencies during those years because we didn't know how to do anything else. Sam wanted me to feel his tics, and I wanted to know all about his tics every minute of the day. We needed to dislocate our bodies into two separate bodies, but that was a whole other story with a whole other learning experience. But it's hard to maintain your identity as their assistant and let them determine what they need to be and what they want. That is a very difficult journey of self-reflection. As parents with kids with bonus features, we do not get to be lazy parents. We are always reflecting, analyzing, absorbing information. There is no slacker parenting in this world.
Thank you for that. It's a really, really fabulous information. You are an amazing family. Charlotte and Sam, you are just so amazing, so inspiring. I'm sitting here thinking about my own journeys and other things and how I need to go about doing things. So thank you for sharing such wonderful insight with all of us here today. And I really liked what Charlotte said about, we as parents are there to help amplify our children's voice. How powerful is that, right? We want them to speak up for themselves, but be there to amplify that voice for them. Very, very powerful. Does anyone have any other questions? Oh, go right ahead. Unmute yourself first, Kristina, and then Loni. Go ahead, Kristina.
Sure. Good morning, buddy. Good morning, Charlotte.
Good morning,
I just wanted to, how are you?
We're great.
I just want to first say how proud I am of both of you for being vulnerable and sharing your story. I know Sam and I have talked a lot, and hopefully one day down the road, we're going to do it. I would love for him to start our convocation with our teachers. It's a lot, but he and I have talked a lot about it. Like he shared, it's hard for teachers who have not been trained in special education to really work with our kids who really don't need program other than support. So that's our goal down the road. But Sam, my question for you really is thinking about being a senior and getting ready to transition. What makes you nervous now that you've built sort of that support system and people who know you, you know, and feeling comfortable? What makes you nervous about the next steps of your journey, and how will you use your advocacy skills to educate those professors that you're going to have?
Thank you so much, Miss Mannino. She's at my school, to clarify for anyone else. Oh goodness. No, I'm gonna start. College is horrifying for anyone without TS. It's a big jump. I'm actually gonna answer this with a quote. I know it's cheesy, but I attended a virtual version of the Tim Howard Leadership Academy this past year, and we got to be, I think it was on a Zoom with Tim Howard for like an hour, just answering him questions. And I wrote down like everything he said because he's Tim Howard. That's what you do. And we asked him a kind of similar question, kind of, when we go out into the world, how can we still be advocates for ourselves and advocates for others? And this is the quote he said: "Being selfish enough to take time for you gives time to be selfless for others." So I guess to answer your question, I'm going to need to realize what I need and take a step forward from the support I have, and be selfish for me a little bit, fight for a little bit what I need and take what I need. But then once I can do that, I can then be selfless for the people around me. And the thing that always makes me happy is seeing everyone else happy. So once I take the time to realize what I need, then I can then take time for those around me, which will then work right back to me. And hopefully, once I get to college, I'll build a whole nother support group just like I have here.
Good. I think that is wonderful advice.
I think a beautiful testimony to our school district is that Sam wants to come back and be doing exactly what that fourth grade teacher did for him. He wants to get his teaching degree and come right back and be those beautiful examples of teachers that we've experienced in our district. And what better testament can you give to the success of a school district that amplifies children's voices? My warning for the day: children who become advocates are excellent negotiators and really great public speakers. So my daughter, who chose to follow her brother, even though she does not have bonus features, decided to join her brother in the advocacy journey and become a youth advocate, sent me a 6-page document about why she should get a leopard gecko. That is not what I signed on for when we became advocates, that these children will become excellent public speakers, excellent negotiators, and persistent as anything.
That's hilarious. I got a couple of questions. I think Loni wanted to ask a question first, and then I also have Marissa's question here. Go ahead, Loni. Thank you.
Yeah, I just first wanted to thank you both. This has been fantastic. This is actually the first webinar that I've ever been to regarding advocacy, and I think that you guys brought up some wonderful points. And it's also nice. So my daughter's in first grade right now, so we're going into year 4 with our IEP. So she had one in preschool, and I think it's so nice to see you guys coming on the other side of that journey. And I love the idea that Sam, you'd mentioned that you had a mentor early on, and I think that's such a my daughter in particularly has sensory processing disorder with anxiety. So right now, you know, Charlotte, when you were like, she's, you know, Sam was presenting very well during the day, but when he was coming home, you saw a lot more of the tics. And so what I see right now with my little girl is she's doing great in school, and I'm getting these wonderful messages from her teachers, but when she's coming down, it was like she was holding herself together all day, and it was like, I'm home with mommy, I'm gonna melt down. So I thought it was great that it's a great reminder for me that as a parent and having an active seat on the child study team, that I need to be forthcoming with them and let them know, hey, I know she had a great day at school. She said she had a great day at school, but this is what I'm seeing when we get home.
Yes.
So I thought that that was such a great point, having older mentorships. If there are other students, you know, later on in the process that also have sensory processing disorder or also have anxiety, if there is an opportunity for my little girl as she's getting older and the academics gets more challenging and there's more of an independence coming along with that age, how having a peer to kind of talk to and see how they've handled their experiences as they got older would be awesome. So I think that just listening to the both of you and seeing Sam speak for his needs and being able to tell teachers and tell the child study team what he needs to be successful it's such a wonderful thing for me to see, because right now I'm my daughter's only voice at the moment. So I just wanted to thank you both for this. I thought this was fabulous. And you've definitely given me some great ideas that I can do as a parent and kind of a look into the future of what my daughter's potential could be. So thank you both for that.
Oh, Loni, thanks for sharing. A couple of thoughts. Take pride that your daughter is successful during the day. It's hard to remember that when they get home, and it's like you have to nap before they get home just to jump in there. Take care of yourself. That's not something I always did well. I wanted to be there every second. I was talking to a therapist one day, for me, not for him. And he's like, so what does your evening look like? And I said, Sam gets home and I'm Sam's aide until bedtime. He's like, that is a bad idea. And it was. Remember to take care of you too. This is really, really tough when they come home and they melt. It will burn you out. If there are activities they can be involved in or something soothing, we do a lot of pillow nests in the evening. A lot of sensory OT things. I'm with you there with the sensory stuff. We had to give Sam a month-long warning for when we were switching from short sleeves to long sleeves and vice versa. Sensory issues can be super challenging and draining. As far as your IEP goes, plan, and also I know Marissa has IEP questions or 504 questions. Plan for your worst day possible. Don't plan for where you are now. Picture that one time where your child had the worst meltdown and you know you need a calming room for your child, or you know you need to, Sam went through some really scary kind of like seizure tick type episodes, and he needed a room where he could do the opposite of whatever he was experienced. Like if he was in a bright light, he needed a dark room with soft music. So pick your worst day possible and format your IEP around that, and hope that you never have that worst day.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Elizabeth?
Marissa has that.
Marissa has a question about, 504, besides taking a walk or doing a tick.
I know Sam has a lot to say on that.
Yes.
Yeah, and I do see we are running low on time. There's still more questions, so I'm gonna answer this kind of quickly. For me, I just take everything that makes me uncomfortable. How can I make that comfortable? IEP. So any situation, for me, I realized very early on, during tests, let's say I have an hour for a test. Most kids are taking an hour to test. Me, I'm taking maybe half an hour to test, 20 minutes to tick, 5 minutes to be anxious, 5 minutes to rewrite it. I'm not taking a full hour to test. So for me, I realized, okay, I'm going to need more than an hour. So that was something that made me uncomfortable, and that extra time will make me comfortable. Walks. I can only sit for so long. Like the moment I'm done this, I'm probably going to go run a mile or something to get me up and moving. So for our classes in my school, they're generally outside pandemic an hour and a half. So I've in my IEP at some point, and I typically make it in the middle of the block, I can get up and go take a walk, because that's something that I was uncomfortable about, and it makes me comfortable. So really anything that makes your child or your teen, whoever it is, whatever makes them uncomfortable, anything that can make them comfortable is something that should be on the IEP. And I had, when I was having really bad tick episodes, reduced homework load. I haven't used that in years, but we keep it there because, especially in these uncertain times, I may need that again. So never take anything off the IEP unless for some reason you have to, but always keep as much as you can on that IEP so that it's always there as kind of like a safety net for when you need.
Excellent. Thank you, Sam. That was excellent. I think we'll take one last question from Elizabeth. I know you wanted to ask something.
It's not really a question. I just wanted them to know we're friends. Sam's one of my daughter's best friends, and my other daughter. We have a very similar journey when they were younger. Oh God, don't do this. Thank you for this. I've been advocating. I've been going to hospitals. I speak. I am my daughter's voice because she won't have one in the future. I am so proud of Sam. I love you guys. Oh God, I'm just gonna stop.
I know. Beth is one of my superhero parents. Beth, while I have observed her from afar since her twins were infants, I didn't really know her too much later. I observed Beth in a super long Board of Education meeting. If anyone has been to Board of Education meetings, they are not fun. Beth had her daughter who has intense bonus features in a wheelchair in a Board of Ed meeting where Beth had to work every minute of the meeting to calm and comfort her daughter and then speak eloquently. Beth, we are only who we are because of people like you who live it every minute of every day. So the love is returned right back at you. You are a superhero, as is your family. So I thank you for being an example for us.
And I do have one quick comment about that. Miss Braden, I love you to death. I'm going to tell you, there's one thing you said that I'm going to disagree, and I think you're completely wrong. Your daughter, does she have a vocal voice? No. Does she have a way of speaking for herself right now?
Oh hell yeah! Sorry, Sam.
Exactly. Not everyone advocates for themselves in the way I do. Not everyone is going out giving presentations, doing webinars and things like that, because not everyone chooses to advocate for themselves that way or can advocate for themselves that way. However, there are still so many ways. So many people have a voice. Like Kelly, she has one of the biggest personalities on the face of this earth. She doesn't have a vocal voice to use very much, but her personality says it all. Even if there's a teen, young adult kid that does not want to go out and do all of this, even something as simple as they see somebody else maybe with complete different challenges that opens up, and then comforting that kid, because now there's a connection there. And even if I always tell mom, every presentation I do, I don't care if the whole thing goes wrong. I don't care if there's like a fire drill in the middle of it. I don't care what goes wrong. I just want one kid. I want one person to walk out of there different when they walked in. And even if you can't, or your child can't, or your teen can't advocate in the way that I do, they can still accomplish that goal one way or another, using Kelly as the example with me. Trust me.
Advocacy is a spectrum and a journey. Advocacy is not a yes or a no. For those of you that have reluctant advocates, it's great. Like I said, I've given you the warning. They're going to become really good at what they do. Start off by letting your child fight for choices that mean something to them, that have nothing to do with their bonus features. You know, whether it's negotiating why we can have waffles and ice cream for dinner. Give them the skill of negotiation, the will to fight for something that they want, and take away the stigma from it. We would never make a child feel bad for needing left-handed scissors. I'm a lefty. I cut right-handed because I would not speak up in kindergarten for left-handed scissors. That is a disservice to my life that I will forever use right-handed scissors. If you need left-handed scissors, you need left-handed scissors. If you need more time, if you need walk breaks, if you need to wear glasses, whatever your need is for learning, take the stigma away from it. This is what you need to learn. There is nothing wrong with needing left-handed scissors, extended testing time, or walk breaks.
All right. Thank you, everyone. This has been amazing. The what you guys have shared, it's just as I said before, very inspiring. And I thank all of the parents and educators, everyone who signed up to be here today, to learn and to share, because we're all on a journey, right? We all are going through something in our lives, whether it's TS, this pandemic, whatever it is, and how we get through it and what we put into it makes us grow and be better on the other side when we get through. Mm-hmm. So this is really a powerful way to share information and grow. And I know that I think Marissa and others may want to reach out to the Regans. I am going to put my email address in the chat room if anyone wants to reach out and get additional information. You will also have a survey that comes out. We'd love to have you complete the survey and let us know how we've done today and what other things you might like to see in the future. We're always here to serve you and to give you what you need. It's always our pleasure to do that. And again, I thank all of you for spending this beautiful Saturday with us. I want you to enjoy the rest of the Saturday. And I did put my email in the chat room if you want to connect with me, and I can connect you with Sam and Charlotte. That's wonderful to do. And thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you
everyone
all
so
for
much.
coming.
It was such a joy.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.